Stop being dramatic, Amanda. My mother's voice was sharp as she watched me struggle to sit up in the hospital bed. Marcus didn't push you that hard. You probably just pulled a muscle. I tried to respond, but the pain shooting through my lower back made it difficult to speak. The fall down our basement stairs had left me barely able to move. My name is Amanda Mitchell, and at 24, I'd just experienced my brother's worst attack yet. Marcus, my 28-year-old brother, had always been violent, but our parents had spent years covering up his episodes, as they called them. The nurse entered, checking my vitals with a concerned expression. The doctor ordered some x-rays, she said quietly. We'll take you down in a few minutes. Is that really necessary? My father interrupted, stepping forward. She's fine. Just being overdramatic as usual. We can take her home and let her rest. The nurse's eyes narrowed slightly. Sir, your daughter fell down a flight of stairs. We need to rule out serious injury. What they didn't know was that I hadn't fallen. Marcus had pushed me after I confronted him about stealing money from my savings account. Again. But as always, my parents were already crafting their narrative. It was an accident, my mother insisted, smoothing her designer blouse. Siblings roughhouse sometimes. Amanda's always been sensitive. I closed my eyes, remembering the look of pure rage on Marcus's face as he shoved me. The way he'd smiled when I tumbled backward. The sound of my parents rushing to help him craft his story before they even checked if I was breathing. The x-rays revealed 3 fractured vertebrae. The doctor's face was grim as he showed us the images. This type of injury, he said slowly, is consistent with a significant force, not a simple fall. My mother's hand tightened on my shoulder. A warning. Doctor, we appreciate your concern, but we know what happened. We were there. No, they weren't. They were upstairs when Marcus attacked me. They only came down when they heard my screams. Amanda will need intensive physical therapy, the doctor continued, ignoring my mother's interruption. I'm referring her to Dr. Sarah Wilson. She's one of our best. We have a family therapist. My father cut in quickly. Too quickly. Someone who knows our history. Someone they paid to look the other way, I thought bitterly. This isn't optional, the doctor said firmly. Without proper rehabilitation, these injuries could have long-term consequences. As my parents argued with the doctor, I lay there, feeling strangely detached. Years of Marcus's abuse flashed through my mind. The broken arm when I was 12 that was blamed on clumsy roller skating. The dislocated shoulder at 16 that was just cheerleading practice gone wrong. The countless bruises and sprains that were always somehow my fault. Amanda, my mother's voice snapped me back to reality. Tell the doctor you're fine with our family therapist. For the first time in my life, I didn't immediately comply. I want to try Dr. Wilson, I said quietly. The room went silent. My mother's face tightened with barely controlled anger. My father stepped closer to my bed, his presence looming. Amanda, he said, his voice low and warning. We keep family matters in the family. You know that. But something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was the pain, maybe it was years of suppressed anger, or maybe it was just finally reaching my breaking point. I'm going to Dr. Wilson, I repeated, stronger this time. Then you'll do it without our insurance, my father snapped. And without our support. The doctor, who had been writing in my chart, looked up sharply. Mr. Mitchell, are you refusing to cover your daughter's medically necessary treatment? My father faltered, suddenly aware of how this looked. Of course not, he backtracked smoothly. We just prefer our usual providers. I'll make the appointment with Dr. Wilson for next week, the doctor said firmly, ending the discussion. In the meantime, Amanda needs rest and careful monitoring. As the doctor left, my mother leaned close to my ear. This defiance needs to stop, she whispered. Marcus is sorry. He'll apologize when we get home. Don't make this into something it's not. But it was already something. It had been something for years, and as I lay there, my back throbbing with each breath, I realized Dr. Wilson might be my only chance to finally prove it. Little did my parents know, their carefully constructed facade was about to crumble, starting with my first physical therapy session. The waiting room at Dr. Wilson's physical therapy clinic was bright and welcoming, a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere at home. The past week had been unbearable. Marcus hadn't apologized. Instead, he'd smirked every time I winced in pain. My parents had alternated between guilt-tripping and thinly veiled threats about family loyalty. Amanda Mitchell, A woman in her mid-30s with kind eyes and an athletic build approached me. "I'm Dr. Sarah Wilson. Let's get started with your evaluation." My mother stood up. "I'll come with you." "Actually," Dr. Wilson interjected smoothly, "initial evaluations are one-on-one. Patient privacy policy." Her tone was professional but firm. I could see my mother's jaw clench. "She needs assistance walking." "That's what I'm here for." Dr. Wilson smiled, helping me to my feet. "We'll be about an hour." Once inside the private treatment room, Dr. Wilson's demeanor shifted subtly. "Let's talk about how this happened," she said, helping me onto the examination table. "Your hospital records mention a fall downstairs." I hesitated. Years of conditioning made my throat tight. "That's what they wrote down." Dr. Wilson's hands were gentle as she began examining my back, but her words were direct. "These injuries," she said quietly, "don't match a typical fall pattern. The angle of impact suggests you were pushed with considerable force." Tears burned my eyes. "I can't." "Amanda," she paused, meeting my gaze. "I've worked with many patients. I know the difference between accident injuries and intentional trauma. Your body is telling a story your mouth won't." Her fingers found another tender spot, and I flinched. "This bruising pattern." She traced the marks carefully. "It's older than your back injury." "I bruise easily," I whispered the familiar excuse. "No," she said firmly. "You have systematic trauma patterns. Multiple healing stages. Some of these injuries are weeks old." She pulled out her tablet, showing me detailed body maps. "See these marks? They're consistent with repeated physical abuse." My carefully constructed wall began to crack. "My brother?" I started, then stopped. "Has he hurt you before?" The dam broke. Through quiet sobs, I told her everything. The years of violence, my parents' cover-ups, the threats, the isolation, how they controlled me through financial dependency and emotional manipulation. Dr. Wilson listened, taking notes, her face professional but her eyes compassionate. "Amanda," she said finally, "I'm legally required to report suspected abuse." Terror gripped me. "They'll never forgive me." "This isn't about forgiveness," she said gently. "It's about your safety. Your brother's violence is escalating. These back injuries could have paralyzed you, or worse." "They'll say I'm lying." "Your body tells the truth." She showed me more detailed photographs of my injuries. "These patterns are unmistakable, and I've documented everything." A knock interrupted us. My mother's voice came through the door. "Is everything all right?" "It's been over an hour." Dr. Wilson squeezed my hand. "You're not alone anymore," she whispered. "But you need to make a choice. We can start your healing today. All of it, or you can go back to pretending. What do you want?" I thought about Marcus's smirk, my parents' lies, the years of pain and fear. "I want it to stop," I whispered. Dr. Wilson nodded, then raised her voice. "Everything's fine. Just finishing up our documentation." She quickly outlined a plan. She would file her report. I would stay with her sister, who ran a survivor's shelter, until safe housing could be arranged. Most importantly, I wouldn't go home today. "Your parents won't expect it," she explained. "They'll be focused on trying to control the situation here. By the time they realize you're gone, you'll be safe. They'll try to stop me." "They can try," she said firmly. "But I have evidence, documentation, and the law on my side. You have options, Amanda. For the first time, you have power." When we emerged, my mother stood waiting, tapping her foot impatiently. Finally, "How did it go?" "We've documented everything," Dr. Wilson said professionally. "Amanda needs extensive therapy. I'll be sending my complete evaluation to her insurance company." I saw panic flash in my mother's eyes. She knew what documented everything meant. "We'll discuss this at home," she said sharply, grabbing my arm. Dr. Wilson stepped between us. "Actually, Amanda has another appointment now. Insurance requirements. I'll have her home later." "This is ridiculous." "She's coming home now." "Mrs. Mitchell," Dr. Wilson's voice was steel wrapped in silk, "your daughter is an adult, and right now, she's my patient. I'll make sure she gets where she needs to be." My mother's face contorted with rage and fear. She knew she was losing control. "Amanda," she hissed, "remember what we discussed about family loyalty." I met her eyes, finding strength in Dr. Wilson's solid presence beside me. "I remember everything, Mom. That's the problem." As Dr. Wilson led me to her office's back exit, I heard my mother on the phone, presumably calling my father. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of their reaction. I was finally breaking free. 6 months later, I stood outside the courthouse, breathing deeply. The restraining order hearing had finally arrived. Dr. Wilson stood beside me, a stack of medical records under her arm. Her documentation had become the cornerstone of my case. "You're ready for this," she assured me. "Remember, you're not the one who should be ashamed." The past months had been a whirlwind of change. Living at the survivors' shelter had opened my eyes to how many others have stories like mine. I'd found a job at a local publishing house, started trauma therapy, and slowly rebuilt my life without my family's toxic influence. Of course, they hadn't made it easy. First came the guilt trips, endless voicemails from my mother about how I was tearing the family apart. Then the threats, my father's lawyer sending letters demanding I retract my false accusations. Finally, the manipulation. Marcus suddenly claiming he wanted to apologize, to make amends. But I wasn't the same person anymore. Inside the courtroom, I saw them for the first time since I'd left. My mother looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. My father's expensive suit couldn't hide his nervous fidgeting. And Marcus just looked angry, as always. "All rise," the bailiff called. What followed was 2 hours of my family trying to paint me as unstable, attention-seeking, and prone to accidents. Then Dr. Wilson presented her evidence. "Your Honor," she said, displaying the photographs and medical records, "these injuries show a clear pattern of escalating violence over several years. The vertebral fractures alone required significant force inconsistent with an accidental fall." My family's lawyer tried to object, but the judge was already reviewing the documentation. "I also have records," Dr. Wilson continued, "from 3 different emergency rooms over the past decade, all showing similar injury patterns, all explained away as accidents." My mother's face had gone pale. My father wouldn't meet anyone's eyes. Then it was my turn to speak. Standing at the podium, I faced my family directly for the first time. For years, my voice shook slightly but grew stronger. I believed I deserved it. That if I was just better, quieter, more perfect, Marcus would stop hurting me. That if I was a better daughter, my parents would protect me instead of him. Marcus snorted derisively. The judge's eyes narrowed. "The last attack could have paralyzed me," I continued. But somehow, that still wasn't enough for them to acknowledge the truth. It took a stranger, my physical therapist, to finally say what my own family wouldn't, that this was abuse and it had to stop. The judge listened intently as I detailed the years of violence, the cover-ups, the threats. When I finished, she turned to my family. "Would any of you like to address these allegations?" My father stood straightening his tie. "Your Honor, we love our daughter. She's always been sensitive, prone to exaggeration. We only want her to come home and work this out as a family." "By work this out, do you mean continue to cover up your son's violence?" the judge asked sharply. "This is a private family matter," my mother interjected. "Abuse is never a private matter," the judge replied. "Based on the extensive evidence presented, I'm granting the restraining order against Marcus Mitchell." She turned to my parents. "I'm also ordering both of you to maintain a distance of at least 100 yards from your daughter." Marcus jumped up, face red with rage. "This is bulls." "One more word," the judge warned, "and you'll be held in contempt." Outside the courthouse, Dr. Wilson hugged me. "You did it. You're free." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said, meaning it. "You didn't just heal my back, you helped me find my strength." "You always have the strength," she smiled. "You just needed someone to remind you." That evening in my new apartment, I looked at old family photos. The smiling faces hid so much pain, so many lies. But I was done hiding, done pretending, done protecting people who had never protected me. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "You'll regret this. Family is forever." I blocked the number without hesitation. She was right about one thing. Family is forever. But sometimes the family you choose, the people who actually support and protect you, is more real than the family you're born into. Dr. Wilson had become more family to me in 6 months than my blood relatives had been in 24 years. The women at the shelter, my new friends at work, my trauma support group, they were my family now. I put the old photos away in a box. Maybe someday I'd look at them again when the pain had faded more. But for now, I was focused on my future, a future without fear, without violence, without having to pretend. For the first time in my life, I was truly healing, not just my back, but my heart and soul too. And nothing, not even family, was worth giving that up.